Order.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Leader of Opposition, Honourable Ministers, Assistant Ministers, Honourable Members of Parliament, General Public, either in gallery or watching from the comfort of your home, good morning to you all. Honourable Speaker, it is evident that the change in the climatic pattern is occurring at an unprecedented rate and has a strong impact on waterways-related disasters, including floods. We live in a connected world, and changes to our climate, including rainfall, temperature, and evaporation, influence the hydrological cycle, which in turn drives the hydrology of waterways. Honourable Speaker, the mega challenge of adapting to climate change is by far dependent on how we manage our water resources and waterways. Any description of the perils of the climate change immediately mentions drought, flood, and extreme rainfalls, because climate change is water change, something that we need to recognize. Honourable Speaker, as such, managing waterways in such an uncertain climatic future requires foresight and strategic intervention now rather than dealing with disaster strikes, hence basis of Department of Waterways. Honourable Speaker, in 2017, recognizing the recurring threats that flooding poses to Fijian community, a threat that is projected to worsen due to the effects of climate change, the Fijian government established Ministry of Waterways with the responsibility to improve storm water management, mitigate flooding, improve irrigation, and manage drainage system in Fiji. This was further consolidated into Ministry of Waterways and Environment in 2018. Honourable Speaker, this demonstrates the government's commitment to ensure environmental sustainability and resilient communities by reducing chronic vulnerability of these communities to disasters. I congratulate the Ministry on launching the strategic plan and website last week. The strategic plan shall guide the Ministry in its service delivery. Honourable Speaker, the establishment of Ministry of Waterways and Environment, specifically Department of Waterways, particularly in an era of increasing climate uncertainty, provides for mainstreaming of waterways management strategies amongst other policies such as disaster risk reduction and climate changes policies, and ensuring resilient and thriving future for our people and ecosystem. Honourable Speaker, it is important that we understand and manage this risk now and implement necessary intervention to better our adaptive capacity rather than eliminating on the economic loss during floods. Honourable Speaker, to understand the role and activities of the Department of Waterways, it is important that we understand and appreciate the importance of waterways in our lives. Honourable Speaker, waterways are multifunctional assets providing multiple economic, social and environmental benefit. For centuries, our society has interacted with waterways. They are an integral part of our local environment on which we historically depended for food, shelter and basic survival. It is rightly stated by scholars that waterways are arteries of our planet. And we are all aware what happens when our arteries get clogged. Honourable Speaker, during its inception, the Ministry of Waterways was allocated 24.2 million, which was allocated to drainage and flood protection, watershed management activity, infill drainage for sugarcane farms and maintenance of irrigation system and drainage scheme. Honourable Speaker, during 2018-2019 budget, 55.7 million was allocated to Department of Waterways for its operation. While the Ministry has carried out excellent work since its inception, it's important to note we still have issues around drainage, floods, and coastal and erosions. Honourable Speaker, while we kindly acknowledge the commitment of Ministry of Waterways and Environment, it's keeping all Fijians safe through provision of drainage, flood and coastal protection service. I kindly request Honourable Minister of Waterways and Environment to take us through the operations at Department of Waterways, its achievements, challenges and intended future direction. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
I thank the Honourable Member, and I give the floor to the Minister responsible. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. Speaker, Honourable Leader of Opposition, Members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for asking this question. Mr. Speaker, Honourable Gavoka and the members from the other side, understands very well that Waterways is intrinsically linked to the lifestyle of Fijians. Mr. Speaker, they should thank this government and Honourable Minister for Economy for establishing a dedicated ministry to look after our waterways. Mr. Speaker, for so long our people have taken our waterways for granted. Mr. Speaker, in those days, they didn't realize that in some day ahead, the waterways could become a threat to the communities. Mr. Speaker, you go along Baulevu Road, you see how the waterway there is threatening Baulevu Road. You go, Mr. Speaker, in Coronivia Road, you see how the school, Nakai Kongo Primary School, could be washed away. We have just approved a budget of about $48,000 to do a bank protection. Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to stand and speak about the achievements of the Ministry of Waterways and Environment, especially the Department of Waterways, is an accomplishment for the fiscal year 2018-2019. Mr. Speaker, I absolutely agree with the Honourable Member, Honourable Maharaj. The nature of water-related hazards are evolving. As climate change alters the size and scope of these hazards, as such, it is essential that we keep pace with the quickening pulse of climate change, its impact on waterways and social associated economic repercussions. The Speaker I further concur that waterways plays a very vital role in the lives of us Fijians and has vast importance in our traditional customs and sustenance. Mr. Speaker, it is important to reflect that the Ministry of Waterways and Environment has been established by the Fijian government in recognition that waterways management and preservation of Fiji's natural environment share many inherent linkages, and more importantly, to understand that Fiji's waterways, as part of our natural environment, are at the forefront due to the worsening impact of climate change. Mr. Speaker, let me provide insight into operations in the Department of Waterways. By way of context, the operational functions of the department are guided by a 5-year and 20-year National Development Plan, the National Adaptation Plan, the recently launched Strategic Plan, the Drainage Act 2018, Irrigation Act 1973, and Constitution of our country, the 2013 Constitution. Mr. Speaker, this brings things into context, and let me discuss our operations in the Department of Waterways and its synergies to national policies and plans. Mr. Speaker, the Government of Fiji's 5- and 20-year National Development Plan, with the vision transforming Fiji, unquote, maps out the way forward for Fiji and all Fijians to realize its full potential as a nation. We at Waterways, through operations, provide an enabling environment to achieve this national ambition. Mr. Speaker, one may ask how the Department of Waterways and its operations come into play in the broader context of NDP and NAP. Let me explain, Mr. Speaker. If you look at the strategies outlined under the hazard management of the NAP, National Adaptation Project, the Department of Waterways and its operations is a key agency to deliver 8 of the 11 of this intervention. As such, we align our operations to help achieve the implementation of the interventions. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to give insight into the operations of the Ministry of Waterways and Environment. Mr. Speaker, operations, the budget for the Ministry of Environment and Waterways for the fiscal year 2018-19 was 69.9 million. Mr. Speaker, the total budget for the Department of Waterways for the fiscal year 2018-19 was 55.7 million, comprising of 4.2 million for the operating expenditure, 47.5 million for capital expenditure, and VAT for $4 million. Mr. Speaker, when I walk out this parliament, I get doorstopped by members on the other side asking me that, we need to do this river bank protection for this village in Serua, Nomesi. Just now, Honorable Tokuru stopped me and said, how about Vitongo River? Mr. Speaker, They are raising these issues now because these are issues which are affecting their communities. These are the issues that they feel that their communities, villages and settlements are being threatened. And this is the money that government has allocated to deal with them, to assist them and secure them, as the Speaker said. The Speaker said the Department of Waterways are carried out under the 9 programs: flood protection program, totally new program; coastal erosion protection program, totally new program; watershed management program, totally new program; maintenance of drainage system for non-municipal areas. This was the dedicated public drainage system that used to be undertaken by LORAM, Land and Water Resources Department, under the Ministry of Agriculture before. So this is the only old program, Mr. Speaker say, the dedicated public drains. Then you've got drainage for farmlands program, Mr. Speaker say, we did not have this allocation other than under the sugar industry, sugar ministry. Maintenance of, so now we can do for drainage for cassava farmers, dalo farmers, rice farmers, all those non-sugar agriculture can also be infill drainage. Before, infill drainage was not done. Maintenance of drainage municipal councils program, Mr. Speaker say, from 2 years ago when the ministry was announced, we now provide dedicated money, grants to municipal councils to upkeep and maintain the drainage system. Drainage for rural residential program, Mr. Speaker say, a lot of villages are now being threatened by floodwaters, and there was no specific dedicated allocation for that. And now we have got this allocation. We have done a lot of drainage work. For example, villages in Navua, Galoa village, we have done. Honorable Levere has raised that issue a number of times with us. We have a number of villages in this area in Seruan, Namosi, Singatoka, Ba, Butia village in Ba, we have done that. Maintenance of irrigation schemes, Mr. Speaker, this is an existing program now under Ministry of Waterways and Environment. Irrigation support for farm drainage scheme, totally new scheme, Mr. Speaker said. Honorable Mr. Speaker said the above programs align to the strategic objective of the Department of Waterways, which is, and I quote, building resilience to climate change and waterways related hazards to irrigation, improved drainage, flood control, riverbank and coastal protection. Mr. Speaker say, now allow me to highlight the results accomplished under different programs. The Speaker say waterways hazards such as floods, which now tend to occur with an increased frequency, duration and increased magnitude, are among most widely cited expected impacts of climate change. So this stands out that number one impact of climate change would be through our waterways. And I agree with Honorable Maharaj that climate change is water change, and it is very important we realize this. In Fiji, we have approximately 385 freshwater streams, waterways, with a total length of 4,540 kilometers. Managing these under certain climatic future is an enormous undertaking. However, we have to start with the efforts, and that is what we have exactly done. Mr. Speaker said, to address the flooding challenge posed by climate change, we need conscious strategic reorientation of flood management practices and an integrated holistic approach to managing these challenges. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Speaker said the Ministry of Waterways and Environment flood risk is elevated through projects delivered under the flood protection program. The flood protection program allows provision of adequate infrastructure to mitigate the impacts of flooding on our communities. Mr. Speaker said briefly, the following projects were carried out in the 2018-19 fiscal year: riverbank protection of the Bonibao, Navua, Waniwanga River, Nandakuni River, and the phase 1 and 2 of Singatoka River dredging. The Speaker said this and a number of other work are being undertaken now currently in this fiscal year. And as I alluded to earlier on, Mr. Speaker said that we are ready, we have a vision, we have a strategy to secure and protect our communities no matter where they are in Fiji, Mr. Speaker said. That is the vision, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker said we are not just rolling the government or rolling the ministries, we are looking ahead and anticipating the challenges and problems, and we are ready. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
I thank the Honourable Minister for his response, and I now give the floor to the third